There will be an island, not the first, but the last. This place will seem to be hope for our kind. When those days come, remember these words. Bring me back, and if you cannot, if they will not, then burn that place to the ground. Today on the Comic Book Report, Jonathan Hickman's Inferno. Stick around and check it out. Greetings everyone, my name is Dominic and you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today I'm taking a look at the end of Jonathan Hickman's run on X-Men with his short miniseries Inferno. I'm really hoping Hickman comes back to the X-Men universe, especially in this Krakoa era, but we'll see. Currently this is the last thing I'm aware of that he's written in this X-Men universe. And how does it stack up? Well, let's get to today's review. First, some quick facts about today's collection. The issues in this volume were written by Jonathan Hickman and penciled by Stefano Caselli, Valerio Schetti, and R.B. Silva. The issues in this volume were published by Marvel Comics beginning in 2021. The volume itself collects Inferno, the 2021 miniseries, issues 1 through 4. This oversized hardcover comes in at 224 pages. At this time, I'd like to issue a brief spoiler warning. I will be flipping through the contents of today's collection and commenting on plot points throughout. You've been advised. Okay, and here's our first look at that oversized Inferno hardcover from Marvel Comics. Like all of these other oversized hardcover editions, they are as tall as omnibuses and include glossy print pages. I will say the design aesthetic is still similar to some of the other Dawn of X era X-Men collections they've released. The color they favored for this collection is a bright, almost incandescent orange, which definitely catches the eye. When we make our way to the back cover now, you'll see what I mean. It is a very bright orange, and I don't even think the camera lighting is doing it justice. This thing is like almost glowing neon orange. But it's a fun color to the palette of the growing oversized hardcovers we're getting from this era of X-Men, and I'm frankly happy to have all of Hickman's tenure on this title so far collected. I should probably say franchise, being the greater X-Men work. This is a little mini-series in the same way that House of X, Powers of 10 was kind of a maxi-series. And I've had this book all the way back since when I did that haul video a while back. I'll link to it if I remember. But I finally had the chance to read it after finishing Hellfire Gala the other week. At any rate, you've seen the dust jacket, and of course the under the dust jacket art is just that bright orange book with the word Inferno printed on it. Nothing too exciting, but still very fun and a great color. Also, for those wondering, I don't believe this has any direct tie other than the name to Chris Claremont's X-Men Inferno event. Completely other Inferno guys. This one I think has more to do with that quote I dropped at the top of this video. And real quick, before we dive into the contents of the book itself, I'm going to go ahead and show you a quick look at the binding for this book. This is a much smaller oversized hardcover as far as how much it collects. It's just somewhere north of 200 pages, but you can see the sewn binding there. There is a little bit of gutter loss, but nothing too crazy. Okay, and diving into the collection proper now, Inferno starts off with some great, front matter pages with the kind of sunburst orange to red to yellow kind of colors up front. Very evocative right from step one, and then we dive into the actual collection itself. To set up a little bit of context, this is the other bookend opposite House of X, Powers of 10. That maxi series, which I did review on the channel, really set up this current X-Men era, the Krakoa era, the Dawn of X, Way of X, Reign of X, whatever era of X-Men, and that was kicked off by Jonathan Hickman a few years back. One of the things that happens at the end of House of X, Powers of 10 is this kind of prophecy that eventually this island nation will fall, and this is kind of a closely guarded secret between Moira McTaggart, Professor X, and Magneto. There's also this note that Destiny has where she tells Mystique, hey, bring me back, and if they don't, burn that place to the ground. For a long time, this has been one of the few conditions that I believe Moira McTaggart instigated that, hey, we can't bring Destiny back. So Professor X and Magneto have kind of stalled it or refused it or kind of just come up with a bunch of reasons why not to bring Destiny back. And it's been kind of this looming, dreadful sort of prophecy that you knew that this was going to get paid off. You knew that this was one loose end that had to be tied up. You knew that Mystique was going to break bad and change things. And of course, that's what we have here in Inferno, where Mystique actually brings back Destiny and kickstarts this next era for the X-Men. Destiny is a precog, she's precognition, she kind of gets glimpses of the future, and of course that was a desperately horrible power to have on the island when Magneto, Professor X, and Moira, kind of the powers that be, know that the future has all but been doomed from the very beginning before it started. This is the terrible secret that the three of them hold. Moira is believed to be dead, and she's hidden in this underground kind of black zone under the island where no one can see in, no one knows that she's there. She's like invisible to all forms of scans and what have you, and it's the secret that they know that she's alive, and they know the future of Krakoa and their enterprise here. And they're doing everything they can to stop it, to delay it, to change that future, but they know this horrible secret, and even the rest of the ruling council of the mutants has no idea. So the big tension is they don't want someone who could see the future to become aware of that and topple what they're building here. At this point, they are just a superpower, not just in the world, but in the solar system, galactically. Mutants are the highest stature they've ever been since their inception, as far as we know, and they're just a dominant force in the world, and they know this secret that it could all come crashing down. They know that one of the biggest threats is, yes, humanity, but also what humanity ushers in with the formulation of these like super machines. Think Nimrod and company. It's been an ongoing threat. We've seen kind of the timeline sort of battles in House of X, Powers of 10, and there's been moments that kind of hint at all of these things that are coming. We also know the Children of the Vault are kind of a weird issue as well that could topple some of the future heights of the mutant kingdom here. At any rate, this is a 4-issue series, and it's pretty quick, but you get some dense storytelling that happens. Ultimately, Mystique brings Destiny back and sort of manipulates it, where she gets Destiny put on that council of leaders for Krakoa. This kind of unbalances everything and has Professor X and Magneto immediately concerned. Moira is kind of like, do whatever you can to stop this from happening, but of course it happens. And it also happens because Mystique shapeshifts and looks like Professor X and manipulates the Five to bring forth Destiny from the dead, as they are wont to do. So tensions are high. Now this vote and having Miss Destiny on the ruling council can kind of shift the numbers. So Professor X and Magneto lobby to have Colossus join the council, which he does. But there's still definitely a lot of issues to be had here. Destiny and Mystique immediately try to kind of shift and do some power plays to figure out what's happening, why it's happening. And they slowly discover that Moira McTaggart is still alive. We know from the beginning of this Inferno series that there's this horrible history between Destiny and Moira and Mystique from a previous one of Moira's lives. And it just is really violent, horrible ending. So Destiny, Mystique versus Moira is kind of the underpinning of this whole thing. At one point, Professor X and Magneto loop in Emma Frost. They tell her about Moira. She scans her and gets just kind of brought to her knees, realizing her mutant power. And Emma basically is pissed at Magneto and Professor X for keeping this from her, and ultimately doesn't really align on the side of Professor X and Magneto or Mystique and Destiny. She's kind of for Krakoa and on her own terms, but she kind of aids in getting Destiny put on the council by her vote. And anyway, it starts to destabilize what they're doing. At one point, Moira is kidnapped or taken, and Magneto and Professor X race to try to find her, only to kind of step right into Nimrod's kind of activation and plan, and crazy battles ensue. It's kind of a great time, to be honest. Meanwhile, Destiny and Mystique have Moira kidnapped, and they use this invention from Forge to strip away her mutant power. Presumably now when she dies, she won't be reincarnated, and they're about to execute her. And in the climax, something happens that stops that from happening, but Nimrod does kill Magneto and Professor X. And before they're resurrected, Emma kind of takes the throne on the council and informs the rest of the council about Moira and what everyone knows to kind of keep the ruling body of Krakoa all in the loop. So Magneto and Professor X come back, but they're no longer these secret keepers exclusively. Now the entire ruling council knows, but the greater populace of Krakoa doesn't know. The trust obviously in those two is a bit rattled, and it kind of sets an uneasy kind of standard moving forward for everyone. So that's the synopsis of Inferno as I see it. There's obviously a lot more detail, some critical details, some great character performances we see here, some great action. Some of my favorite dynamics between Magneto and Professor X I've witnessed in quite some time. I love seeing them be such buddies and rallying to the other's aid. There's a point where Nimrod has Professor Xavier about to be crushed, and he kind of gives Magneto an ultimatum, and Magneto has to decide whether to save Professor X or destroy his enemies, and it's just some really intense character moments. I love to see what they do with the two of them and how they are now allies and friends fighting for their common mutant superiority and good. I also think it was just fantastic to finally see a payoff for this whole Destiny Mystique situation that was set up so long ago with House of X Powers of 10. I also think the art throughout was very consistent and gorgeous. I actually didn't realize how many pencilers were on these 4 issues because it just seemed consistently beautiful for me and right in line with what we've come to expect from the Hickman X-Men titles. With all that being said, I think that this did under-deliver a little bit for me. I was aware it was a shorter 4-issue miniseries, but I heard almost perfect consensus from everyone I had heard reviews from or talked to that this was just a fantastic read. And yes, I do think it was still a very good little miniseries, much better than my experience with Hellfire Gala, arguably better than a lot of his actual X-Men run, although there were issues in that run I probably preferred to this, if I'm honest. I think overall my consensus is just, I think I wish, based on the incredible setup we had for this whole Destiny Mystique thing way back in House of X Powers of 10, I think I hope with all that setup and kind of the dread and foreboding feeling I had reading all of this Hickman X-Men, I think I hope the payoff was a little bit better. It's not that they didn't stick their landing, I think that it definitely had a good conclusion, but I almost hoped for a little bit more. I wish the execution was a little bit higher. I wish there was a greater sense of stakes or cost for what happened here. And perhaps there is in the future. I think what I should have expected is that even at the end of this, it feels like it's building the foundation for an ultimate fall for the Krakoa era of mutantdom, but this isn't the fall. In fact, I think that Marvel Comics announced that there is a Fall of X series that's coming, and I'm assuming that's going to be the end of this whole current era of X-Men with Krakoa and the nation state as we know it. But we'll see. And so maybe this is just another stepping stone along that path for this grand narrative of Krakoa. And overall, I do like this era. I think I favor it more than a lot of people I've read. But I think I hope that this would be a little more conclusive as the kind of capstone for Jonathan Hickman's tenure on this X-Men era. But who knows? Maybe he'll be back, and maybe I shouldn't have expected this to wrap up everything in a bow like I hoped it would. Overall, another good chapter, and a chapter I really liked. I think Moira McTaggart is a fascinating character who has grown infinitely more fascinating in this Krakoa era of X-Men books, and I do think that this was a worthwhile chapter. It was exciting to see Destiny come back and kind of the menace and general threat she posed to the island and the rest of the mutants. So overall, a very fun read, no regrets, and I think it packs a lot of punch for a 4-issue miniseries. And of course, we even got a variant cover art gallery at the back, which you all got to see. And honestly, that is the collection. That is Inferno 2021. And here it is along with the rest of Hickman's work on X-Men. Some of these are obviously collaborative, but here it is. This is what he's written for the X-Men era so far. And, it was a pretty good read, all things considered. Now let's give this a grade. For its beautiful art, great characterizations, and its attempts to tie up some of the loose ends that Hickman left during his run on X-Men recently, the Comic Book Report is happy to give Inferno a B. This was definitely an above-average read for me, but it had me wishing that Hickman's actual X-Men run was at least up to this standard. This definitely felt overall more elevated than what we got during his actual run, but still does not hit the heights of House of X Powers of 10 for me. I think this is a better end note for Hickman's run on X-Men for me than the end of his actual X-Men run. However, I think I would like to see him come back and bring this all to a close. I feel like we're missing the third act, and I just hope that when we get to it, that he's the one writing. If you've read Inferno, let me know what you thought in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please share it with a friend. That kind of stuff always helps me out. And thank you so much for watching the Comic Book Report. Feel free to check out some of my other videos, and until next time, have a good one.